Long time passing, where have all the flowers gone? Long time, where have all the flowers gone? Young girls pick them everywhere. Where
Lacey on banjo, Phila Grace on guitar and vocals. Let's hear it for them. Yeah. Welcome to this, our fourth event of the April is Poetry Month in Limerick. Tonight we are delighted to welcome the four horsemen of poetry from Dublin, Quarterman. Quarterman consists of Tom Connolly, Darrell Pradish, Seamus Cashman and Paul Regazzi. And now hand over to our CEO, Mr. Dominic Taylor.
Thanks a million, Tom. Just a few quick words. And also I'd like to thank Phila and Mick for that beautiful singing that's there. It is remarkable to think that our April is Poetry Month in Limerick Festival has been going since 2013, with only a brief hiatus of 2 years during the COVID pandemic. What began as a modest online affair with daily poem postings on Facebook and a handful of live events including an open mic and a poetry trail has blossomed into a month-long extravaganza of poetry. Each year I find myself declaring that it will be the last, only to be swept up by the momentum of new ideas and renewed enthusiasm as we approach April once again. As Tom mentioned, this marks the 4th event of this year's festival, and we're thrilled to showcase the talents of Quarterman, a poetry collective consisting of 4 Dublin poets, Tom Connaughty, Seamus Casman, Darragh Bradish and Paul Bregassi. And I'm delighted to say that we have published 2 of tonight's guests, Tom Connaughty and Darragh Bradish, through our Revival Press publishing imprint. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Tom Connaughty, who's going to introduce Quarterman to us.
It's a privilege to be here, and I know I've been involved in poetry, and Quarterman have been involved in poetry. These events don't exist without the incredible dedication of yourself and a huge committee, and it's not just, you know, an overnight success. This has been going since 2013, and thank you very much for that, and thank you again publicly acknowledging, you know, publishing my own collection. I'm from Cavan originally. The only claim to fame or claim of source to Limerick is the fact that the Shannon rises in the Shannon pot in the Quilty Mountains and flows all the way through Ireland out through the estuary here. So that's, I won't claim anything, but I'm delighted to be in Limerick, and Quarterman is delighted to be here as well. And first off, we're going to read, the folks are going to read for about 10 minutes each some of our own poems, and then we'll conclude at the end of the evening with 3 poems from our collective Quarterman. And there's some pamphlets there free of charge. When you have free of charge, take them along with you. It's an interesting process, and we talked about that just before we read from there. But first up is Darragh from Terranure, and he studied fine arts and history in Trinity, and he lives part-time in Liscannor. 10 years with the Soundings for Simon, you know, the book, the Leaving Cert book. He had a great fundraiser with that every Christmas time, just before Christmas, 10 years of that, and he organised listeners with Paul Bregassi and Ron Carey now. His first collection, Eastern Marsh, was with Liberties, and an award-winning poem there for Trocan Poetry Ireland and Disclosure, and as you said, Centre of Always has been published by Revival Press. So thank you very much, and Darragh.
Good evening, and thank you again for the beautiful music and touch of nostalgia there for those of us who remember. I would, what I'm reading tonight is from the Centre of Always, which was published by Dominic, and I'm going to start with a rather strange poem. It's a spectral poem. Now, a spectral poem is a poem that starts out and it comes down to a certain point, and then you start going backwards in the poem. And what you hope to achieve is that you will take your listeners to a place that they weren't in at the beginning of the poem, which is what all poems do really, but this one does it in a peculiar sort of way. This is called Gargoyles of Notre Dame, and it was written before the fire in the cathedral, when they were trying to restore the gargoyles, which were in a pretty bad state. I think they're back and looking splendid now, thanks to the fire. But anyway, for what it's worth. Put on the rim with purpose to discharge, ancient cast-outs, sprouts that mellowed over time, we somehow came to love them, give them pet names, the way we first tamed dogs, who hogged our campfires in the night, in daylight joined us in the feast, stayed with our children, and growled at dangers that confronted clan or pack. In days when sky was roof enough, above known facts to shelter, gargoyles, entrapped protesters rose from deeper depths, companions of the dark, rude creatures, hewn from elemental stone. These devils leapt from the ancestral home cave floor to crown our soaring temples with snoot dragon snarls. As time draws down the mountain to the plain, long-hoisted demons begin to crumble and decay. Long-hoisted demons begin to crumble and decay as time draws down the mountain to the plain to crown our soaring temples with snoot dragon snarls. These devils leapt from the ancestral home cave floor. Companions of the dark, rude creatures hewn from elemental stone, gargoyles, entrapped protesters rose from deeper depths in days when sky was roof enough above known facts to shelter, and growled at dangers that confronted clan or pack. In daylight joined us in the feast, stayed with our children, the way we first tamed dogs who hogged our campfires in the night. We somehow came to love them, give them pet names, ancient cast-outs, sprouts that mellowed over time, put on the rim with purpose to discharge. Second poem is a very short poem. In fact, it originally was almost the title poem of this collection, because the collection has a lot of poems about Mary Shelley. This one is called Surviving Mary Shelley. It's not actually about Mary Shelley. It was inspired by something completely different. But Surviving Mary Shelley. It is the forward leap that sows. Belief in landing is the second thing, and not the first that captures man's prime need for reckless joy. So let the Congo dance proceed apace into the arms of racing time. Each clasp a stranger's pair of moving hips, and holding fast feast on the frame of verse. For us no recompense. Love is and always stays in the spring, the one tremendous fling we make of our own selves into the nonsense. The next poem is What They Brought With Them. And sometimes with photo shopping pictures, people are put into pictures where they don't belong. And in this case, I'm talking about people who have passed on. In places where you were not meant to be, they brought you with them. Your face a cutout mounted on a wand. Each snapshot taken told their love-intentioned lie. Each image valued as they held you still. In old town alley souvenir shops where you lined the crockery shelves with serving dishes and painted carnival plates. With grinning suns and winking yellow moons, always laughing, looking straight at your photographer. And in markets you were slipped on well-stocked stalls where your neighbours were bloody grapefruits, your face among them like a burst of inspiration, ripened on the holiness of staying put. Never more of flesh and blood you were, or hampered by an autumn-dented sun. At the taverna table, you took pride of place, jovial, waiting for the wine. This was the state in which they carried you a time, before they brought themselves to let you go. A last shot taken had you floating in a a sea of sparkles, your image held by friends, in moon-pulled water, drifting outward with the tide. Another poem about the dead, Harbour Moon. It was the moon, you said, that nailed it for you. Though not the moon we happened to be looking at that time you said it, a pale coin hoisted from its base. No, it was the brightest splash of yellow moon glow, like the first time love of place or person. A warm moon wailed from a day-long sleep. When you said, when was the last time that we were wowed by such a moon as this? Swam its churned up ocean or walked 100 miles we didn't have to. I remember when you said it was the moon that nailed it and named our dead, who make it possible for us when our night comes to catch that gasping love breath, gratitude, a great sail billowing with light above the deep, bold harbour floor. Perhaps I'll finish with one from up the road in Clare. It's called After Image, and it's a photograph of the Cliffs of Moher in 1910. 4 people are seated at a round table. See, here is the photograph, an outing captured in the still, pools of shadow, and the stack of cliff, chairs, tables, seated ladies, nothing shifting on this wild bare ledge, fading distances and rounds of greyness settling into after image. Imagine soundscapes crack open the Atlantic grumble. Wind-lofted voices sail and rise and fall and rise to tumble yet again to a breathless halt. The snapman called the shot, one shutter slap, generations after seeing only still life holding in of swollen lungs, captor and captive, waiting to exhale an ocean, oblivious of the birds. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Paul Ragazzi, and I'm just going to take it from the back of his collection. Paul was born and bred in Dublin. His poetry has been published, broadcast and anthologised widely, and have been awarded. Shortlisted in a number of competitions, including Rialto Nature, the Report, Valley Boru, Ledwidge, Magma Editor Prize, Touchstone Haiku of the Year, and the Jergun International Haibun Competition, Japan. He was selected for Poetry Ireland Introduction Series in 2015, and he's won the Court New Writing Prize for Poetry in 2017. He is a member of the 4-man collaborative collective Quarterman, which was founded with Dara Bradish of the Listeners and Literary Groups, and co-founder of Dara Bradish. He has served as assistant editor with the Highland Journal and was a recipient of South County Dublin Tyrone Guthrie Centre Residency 2018. And the Words Ireland Mentorship Programme 2019, and he has received an Arts Council Agility Award in 2023. Hand you over to Paul.
Cheers, but I was very impressed with that
sounds like my obituary or something. Oh, geez, none of those poems in this selection. What I decided to do was to take the nature poems, the collection where it varies over childhood stuff and that. But there's also quite a selection of nature poems in it. So I begin with one. I was a school teacher for years, and some of them are draw on the experiences there. This is Woodcock. A thump on the classroom window breaks the mood. Learning is lost as we raggle-taggle out the fire doors. Below the sill, the tawny ball rolls in a wind of its own. Buff under feathers flurry, showing the eyelid skin breast, the tripod of legs and bill. The gimlet gob draws gasps as the wild flickers in the jet of its eye. Now, the wounded wood cairn is borne towards our world, held high above the child horde following the spoil, its wings overlapped to siphon it from us. But on our threshold, it explodes towards its sky, leaving us askance. The next one is not really nature, it is in such a wider sense, I suppose. It's called Higgs Boson, and it's in memory now of Peter Higgs, the guy who came up with the concept of the boson, which, if I understand it, is a very, very small particle that controls all the other small particles. But when it was finally discovered back in 2012, when they ascertained that it did exist, for some reason it was all over the news, and all the kids were coming in talking about it, not knowing what the hell they were talking about any more than I did. So this is Higgs boson. And I think I neglected to mention that Peter died there on last Friday, I think. Such a small thing to be God, and so hard to find, that messages ring the world, and even little ones, smaller in their world than any bosun, acclaim the finding. These are the small ones who slow the others, who move them to collide usefully, to bang big. Coming home from work every day in Clondalkin, I came down through the industrial estates in Ballymount. You might or may not know them, but they're pretty much like the industrial estates coming into Limerick or anywhere else. This one is about the scenery that you might see there. It's called Roos in Suburbae. Behind a straggling chain-link fence that winds along the motorway, upping and downing over hummocks of concrete and oxidised car parts, the flock of suburban sheep graze through the lush thistles, the verdant nettles. Under the branches of a pylon, they went their way over undulating asbestos, the sun picking out their fleece against the hue of the galvanising plant. I'm quite close to the Dublin Mountains where I live, and it struck me once in the woods up there looking down at the city of Dublin that, you know, apart from the difference in the trees that are planted and that I was standing somewhere where people might have stood for hundreds of years and looked down. They might see different things, but the place, the situation was pretty much the same. And a feature of the spot is that you can find the stinkhorn fungus, which is a phallic fungus. I was going to show you my hands what the shape was, but I started to do it last night. That's not going to look well, so I won't show you the shape of the phallic fungus. But it's called, in Latin, it's called Phallus impudicus, which gives you some sort of notion. Look it up. Stinkhorn. It rises from the turf of veined pine needles. The knob, slick and fly-stuck, seeps the reek of something putrefying. Each near step pumps the fetid scent of breeze over a slumped carcass. Close by, the tumbled cly, cushioned in moss, draws up battle wounds packed with sphagnum, medieval holes wiped with wads of dripping coolness from the hills, the smell of bog and prick of needles still in it, the single wild note in the miasma of the chivium, hot waft of the just thrown night soil, shake of the last drops from the night's small ale. From these hills above the Dove Linn, from buchhawns in the runoff under the trees, from bit hiss in the fire, the cold heat of damp branches, see them bring down, slipping on the black buttery peat, hauling on slide cars, tinder, coney pelts, ouzel and jenny wren, colt's foot and hart's tongue, whins, puffballs and stinkhorn. I shall do one more perhaps, yeah. This is about my daughter's dog, Sam Whippet. She's more like a child than a dog, really. And I do this for Tom. He usually gets a bit of the giggles from this as well. He's very taken with it. Anyway, Sam Whippet. For he is a whippet of the race of gazehounds, for he is embroiled in muscle, unless he is being the cat prince, ensconced on someone else's favourite chair. Wind is in him. He overtakes it, yet will not stir out the door to meet it. Yet, meeting it out on the green or in the wood, he will chase and turn it, tearing out his angling dew claws on his carved reverb. Squirrels are his sworn nemesis from some ancestral feud. When he comes upon a dray, he halloos all his kin to its destruction, till he be taken from the fray in a writhing mass of sinew and bowstring. Rain he will not abide on his countenance, but regally shiver till a bond servant gives him ingress, plies him with his cloak as he takes his throne. That's Sam Whippet. Thank you very much. Now I have to introduce Seamus Cashman. I'm not going to introduce Seamus Cashman because Seamus has been around a long, long time. You know, we'd be here all day reading about or listening about him. Seamus is famously the founder of the wonderful Wolfhound Press. That was an appropriate connection there from Sam Whippet. And Seamus, apart from some fantastic literary studies stuff and history that he did, he also reissued many established Irish writers of the early 20th century, including the famous Liam O'Flaherty, Margaret Barrington and Monk Gibbon. He introduced the public to the famed Father Brown photographs, which some people will certainly remember. He received the Reading Association of Ireland's Special Merit Award in 2005 as compiler and editor of the fantastic children's anthology Something Beginning with P, which if you can get your hands on, it's absolutely marvellous. Marvellous volume of poems by a selection of Irish poets, and then different artwork on each page. It's just a fabulous production. But that was superseded, that Special Merit Award he was telling us coming down in the car was superseded by an award he got for climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, which he still has. Didn't bring the award with him. It was a sort of a wreath for his head. Might have been appropriate, but he didn't bring it. But I was going to say he might show it to you, but only once we won't go there. He was an English language judge for the International Mamilla Poetry Festival at Ramallah, and the first international fellow at the Black Earth Institute. Born in Connaught Village, East Cork, which wonderfully I think in a room his mother named Beggar's Bush. He's lived in Portmarnock, Malahide, and now swords in North Dublin. Okay. Seamus Cashman.
Good evening. And I did want to say that I really admire the work of your good self and your publishing activities for the last 30 years or thereabouts.
Yeah.
And it's 20 probably since I met you last. But it is not easy to develop and run a public publishing company. But it's really good to have one in Limerick. I mean, it's important that it's not just Dublin that things just emanate from, and we often, I'm from County Cork myself, East Cork. It's very easy to fall for the notion that the energy of the state comes from the capital. It does not. The capital is full about itself. The energy of the state comes from the surrounding counties and people. It really does. I'm delighted to be here this evening, and the Kilimanjaro climb was in 1966. So that was a long time ago, but yeah, it was good. It was good. So I'd like to read a number of poems for you from a recent collection, and maybe if there's time for a previous one. I selected the poems more on the basis of the titles and why the hell they became poems. Like, it's quite interesting that poems begin maybe as a concept or idea, but very often a phrase comes to mind at the same time, or even beforehand, and lets you then delve into what are the ideas, and it can become a poem. So I had a strong connection with Palestine back from 2004, with several visits, and up to recently. And just outside Jerusalem, there's an empty village. We had empty villages here in Ireland, right? When the famine happened, right? Houses that were standing there and the grass growing up around them for years afterwards, that just became empty. Well, just about 3 or 4 kilometers from the centre of Jerusalem is a village with 20 or 30 houses scattered kind of around it, of stone houses. And when I saw it and kind of walked around it, the strongest feeling that was there was one of absence. Just absence. The buildings were speaking about absence almost. It was quite extraordinary. So this is a poem called Lifter. Lifter is the name of the village. Lifter Voices. When the misted darkness slips away, sneaking down slopes to hide from eyes that stare, and when light uplifts in open air and revels with voices there, then in the bright of day hearts break once more. Break as they broke in 48 and 49, in 50, 51, and on in a mosaic of time and faces, crackling, wrinkled, aged wrinkles around the eyes and door of each home. As with famine homes on Achill, abandoned homes on islands of water or of land, by river, lake or limestone shale, where shadows hide when houses home and empty, people gone. Lifters' homes squat here and stare, still in their aureole of longing, sunken wells of longing. Across their stony tellings is belonging. Beneath each stony wall, belonging. Upon its empty walls, belonging. When all passers-by are home, Lifter shouts into the sky, stone words, not steel nor gas, stone kitchen words of home that Lifter voices know. And then a young man, just qualified as a journalist in one of the local universities, died, as a lot of people have died in Palestine. This was back in 2008, I think. And I was asked to write a poem for a magazine that was being published here in Ireland of poems related to Palestine. And this one is one that is the one. And it's called Quina Amjad of Beit Omer. Beit Omer is the name of the village or town that he was from. Amjad is his name, and Quina. And the reason that came from the fact that I had just read Quina de Lera on the day I was asked to write a poem for that, and Quina was stuck in my mind, and I said, oh, that should be a way to go. It's a short poem, but it's a lament for Andrea of Bytomer. And by the way, he was shot not because he was doing anything. The previous day, a bunch of kids, not including him, had been throwing stones at tanks and soldiers. Next day, the soldiers came back and they just shot a few people in the area, and he was one of them. A blush of wind poppy each sunset, olive trees are brother and sister. In the rain, holding palms full of fears, stand father and mother. That day was your last. Now you stride through the past tense in all of our languages, strong man and boy. Your root knows the truth beyond lies and the cowardice of apartheid. Woven in memory hoops, the ghost of a speckled mare priding beside you. Summer flowers on your grave, a key in your pocket for Palestine. I don't know if you know, but that every Palestinian family that has left or been driven out of Palestine for the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years, including 750,000 back in the 40s, who all went to what are called refugee camps, which are being bombed at the moment, which is a funny world. But they all took keys to their houses so that they could come home sometime. And most of them have passed them on to family. I would like to go from there to a poem that is consciously titled for attention, but the title had come of its own accord. The title is To the Naked Woman in the Far Window. I like the word naked, and I wanted to get a poem that had the word naked in its title. And the truth about the naked woman in the window is, I had just had breakfast in my kitchen. I live alone, and out my kitchen window are 1, 2, 3 layers on a rising ground of houses in an estate, right? And as I was washing the cup and bowl or whatever, I looked out the window, and a naked woman came standing at the window and stayed there. Now, maybe she wasn't naked, I have no idea, but I saw her as a naked woman, right? But this is what came from it. The foot is more noble than the shoe, the skin more beautiful than the garment with which it is clothed, Michelangelo said. But who will claim the why we gaze, the beauty sought or the pursuit? So I might place you on a cold altar slab in ambrosia, pace praxitiles, your shoulders, buttocks and heels to the stone, undressed too to tempt the sacrificial toll, nakedness elevated unto nudity, flesh become word, each syllable a hemoglobin of desire or promise. But if by chance you are looking, unless you have hawk eyes or binoculars, you could not know, as the sun sculpts and warms my face, that though I lean to almost kiss the kitchen window glass, my worshipful eyes are closed. Eyes are closed. Made of clay, naked or clay dressed, ambiguities attend your presence. Your promise is to undermine the squallows of belief, entangled in the physics of stone. Here are words the body made, fish, fowl, flesh, unwashed unguents, stickily sweet but smelling too of roses. Here is the aroma of ritual, no miracle to come. In the pew sits a wounded lamb, mane magnificent, and speared tail tapping the clean mahogany bench. And then to a windy day, very heavily windy day actually, in Dublin. It's called Still Life on Water. Those sycamore falls are canvas worlds in brown and yellow, dappled, matte, rich pastels bright. No wind now, and tidy, clean-swept, brushstroke waves strap the gutters and hairbrush to the shoulders and nape of a long, curved and leaf-lined day on the North Circular Road. But Buck Jones's road is leafless. The wind blew all the way past stadium and hotel, sweeping clean. Under the slow bridge, gliding swans tease me to an unexpected curiosity. 2 swans at swim at a slant to the bank. The lead swan imperceptibly adjusts direction towards a mesh of fallen leaves, a densely bonded island float, held on the canal's dark undercurrent. The darkness now seems destination or hiatus, as the lead swan tacks into the leaf lake, rippling its meniscus to a rise and fall, spreading out those leaves, which backflow to bond again, leaf on leaf, broaching a still life on water. I move on across one bridge and underneath another, wondering if swans die alone. In Tanzania, I came across the baobab tree for the first time, and they're quite extraordinary trees. There are many kinds of baobab trees. On the back cover of the book is one, which is maybe a 15-foot trunk base diameter, and it's probably 40 feet high. But many of them are single poles, like telegraph poles, except they slant in and up, 60 foot high, and they're just extraordinary to look at. The bole is bare, essentially. It's at the top that the branches and leaves come out, and the fruit and flowers exist. It's a wonderful, wonderful tree. And this is kind of an acknowledgement of it. Flowers of the baobab tree bloom at night. Gnawed its bark, gnawed its bite, gnawed its motion, sometimes cave for the poacher. Where one stands, horizons are long, sunshine strong, so strong, knotted, hardened, a breathing tower, its forest a dark speckled dwelling. Terrible stillness, terrible centeredness, terrible awning, fruit in shelter up high near to the sky, so near, so here on the ground. Oh, where the sun, where the night, where the dawning muscle of life, holding twilight, rising pride, a savannah lion with a great black mane, baobab. See, a baobab tree. I spent a couple of years in Tanzania. That was the same time I climbed Kilimanjaro. I haven't got a poem on climbing Kilimanjaro yet. Maybe I should try to do that. In India, there was a young man, he must be in his 40s now maybe, this would be 20 years ago, who from the age of 12 began to go outside of his house and sit under a tree and spent his day there. And his parents came to terms with the fact that this is what he wanted to do. And then he got a notion that he should honour a Sikh god, whose grotto or place was 2,500 miles north in Pakistan, just across the Pakistani border. And he decided to make a trip there. But how he went was what got the television companies of the world excited. He rolled there, lay over on his side and just rolled his body in his loincloth, getting blasted and blooded and whatever. But day after day, night after night, he simply rolled and rolled. And as he went from village to village, people followed him to the next village, then they left, and the new village joined him in and sort of kept encouraging him on. When he arrived, and as he did 6 months later, he arrived at the border with Pakistan, and India and Pakistan don't get on that well. He wasn't let cross the border. So he made a statement that he didn't recognize borders. This was a single earth, and he was a citizen of the earth. And that was before we all started talking about being citizens of the earth, right? But that's what he said. And television come, BBC, American TV comes, they all came excited by this man, right? So there was a lot of news coverage about him. But I found it something other than news. I found it exciting, extraordinary, upsetting, delighting. It was just extraordinary. This young man and he was about 15 to 20, somewhere in there, right? So this poem came about it. To all our hand-clap rhythms of prayer and celebration, to the silence of the desert trail and mountain track, to the hum-chug threat of car and truck, to the lift and twist of elbowed knee, to the pain of open wound on me, to the beat of silent dream, roll on. Roll on, Baba, I was there to see you roll along our planet crust and make us tracks for peace. At the crossroads, one of many, I was there watching with the curious and committed, the victims and the dead, your sweet agenda. And we became whirling dervishes, or jumping warriors headbutting cloudy skies, or ballet dancers gracing nocturnes out of field by Chopin, hauntingly insidious among the rocks and dirt and crevices of your long route through hell and smell and clayey nose. Matted hair and body baited, free of pain so full of it, only a mind to drive it on beyond the barriers of masks put on. Roll on, Baba, tongue and jar upon this ground. Roll along our planet crust and make us tracks for peace. To all our hand-clap rhythms of prayer and celebration, to the silence of the desert trail and mountain track, to the hum-chug threat of car and truck, to the lift and twist of elbowed knee, to the pain of open wound on me, to the beat of silent dream, roll on. Thank you very much. And I want to introduce Mr. Tom Connerty, and I have a bit of paper here that says what he is, or that says something of what he is. You know the poet Emily Dickinson in America? All her poems come at you at a slant, right? Because her thinking is kind of always going in a different direction to where you think it's going. Well, that's Tom as well. Tom is always coming at stuff at a slant. He sees possibilities in things that you feel are dead and gone, there's nothing to be done with them. He's inventive, he's creative, he's an extraordinary person. And he was this, I did several workshops in his schools, and he had all the kids excited at the idea of creativity. That might be more common in schools now, but Tom has had that, and I've seen it in action, quite amazing. Right? But I have 4 lines here that I have a very poor memory, right? That I wanted to tell you as something about his background, right? He was at one time a regular contributor to poetry programs. He was a consultant to the Arts Council in Education, Programming and Policy, a member of the Board of Poetry Ireland, a former member of Temnos, yes, he was an actor as well, Temnos Theatre in the 1990s, where he played a leading role in the Glass Menagerie, Oedipus Rex, and Brecht's Mother Courage and Her Children. He's got a real sort of filled life of creativity in a whole range of different sources. And he started our Quarterman group collaboration as well. He's good at collaboration, he's good at integrating ideas or at shifting ideas in different directions. He's also a poet with 3 books, three publications of his poetry, and the first one the title of the first one says it all, An Exaltation of Starlings. And actually the starlings also go at a slant, right? So, Tom Connerty.
Thank you very much, Seamus, for that. And thank you to the musicians, because being from Cavan and border areas, those songs of, you know, where all the soldiers gone, you know, great guns, towers, you know what I mean? I do think that, because most people know that poems are yearning to be songs. They want to go to the, you know, where Heaney talks about where the singing comes from. And that's what we try to do. We try to go into those, as Seamus was saying, slant places or oblique places, to try to get to the truth. And there's no such thing as the truth. But April with its shower swoop, the druth of March had pierced to the root. Chaucer. And April, you know, the cruelest of months, the wasteland, which opens with the burial of the dead. And next week, my father's anniversary. We buried him in April. Sian told me very pleasing. My father in April as well too. So it's a strange kind of one. So I'll read one or two poems to my father to start with. He was a man who carried a lot of ballads in his head. There weren't many books in school at the time, so he carried a lot of poems, a lot of big ballads, and he'd be asked in the pub to give us a recitation, Johnny Cotty, and he'd have a few pints in it, and he'd be there as a young fella, and he'd think, jeez, he's not going to get through it. But I never knew him to falter. Such was the repetition at school. This poem is called Logging, and the two of us big long saw together. It was one of those times when I felt closest to him. Hadn't we everything then, you and I, either side of a long toothed saw, pushing and pulling, inching our way deeper into firewood. Knotted wood lay open on our wooden horse. A line of cuts, with none complete, kept the log intact. Side-saddled, I fed him incisions through a V. I left him with the handsaw to cut the whole way through. There were poems back at the time around radio poems. I wrote one to my father's called In Search of a Signal. Who changed the feckin' station, he would ask. Will you get up and turn on the match, will you? Once a week I try to tune in. What do I get? Silence would fall, limbo on airwaves, interference becoming part of the transmission. I don't know, he would say. The sounds would sing a cappella as he tracked the highway from Hilversum to Prague, Oslo to Paris. Back and forth he would go impatiently, the meniscus tracker moving, but finding no match between us. I don't know, he would repeat. But I did know, even back then. I had been playing with the bands, medium wave, long wave, and my father's very, very short wave. I had changed the frequency forever, pushed me and him beyond our station. Many years later, on a bed, racked with pain, I washed his tired feet, massaged the dry rot out with oil. We tuned in together to a new wavelength. The signal was strong, intense to be precise, and now that he's gone, I repeat to myself like a prayer, I don't know. I didn't expect that would happen. These things travel deep, and I don't know was something he said all the time. And I think it would be a mantra that a lot of us could learn, particularly when so many people speak about what they do know. I know this, I know that, and it's always binary. It's always one side or the other, and they're always fighting with each other around it. And one of the things I feel very strongly about is who has forgot the borderline? Who has forgot the no man's land, the in-between space? That's the hardest one to hold polar opposites. And what do you do with it? You sit in it and you hold it and you try your best to get people to traverse and move out of their known ways. A friend of mine, he's here, Paddy Sexton, is a very good friend, and I have a poem called Bearings, and he was an air traffic controller. Paddy has, Paul Dorkin wrote him a poem as well too. He gave him a lift down at the Ennis Book Festival, and when he was in the car, he said, "What do you do, Paddy?" And Paddy said, "I'm an air traffic controller." And Paul Dorkin looked at him and said, "I always wanted to meet an air traffic controller." And so he's with Paddy on a roundabout, and you can imagine Dorkin's head going, he's going round the roundabout with Paddy, and all he's thinking of, I'm taking off up over the roofs in the car, and he lands him at the old ground. This is from Paddy. We go back along to it in secondary school together. Bearings. Searchlights dim the pointers, the North Star fades in the sky. He reads the signs for us to travel by. Swallows check in with their flight plans, and swifts sleep on the wing when he sends words of prevailing winds to carry them. From his position in the tower, he scans for signals, takes soundings, sightings, sifts for turbulence and for calm, speaks in hectopascals of high and low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. His words, first words in the pilot's ear before landing, last words before departure. Air corridors, runways, earthing the sky. When I talk with him on the island, he is easy and steady, and in his wake on a path by Trágal, I too begin to read the contours of the land, the peaks and depressions, my eye drawn to a headland or an inlet, a gable end or a gate post, something in the distance, something to come home by, in case of heavy weather. Once he read the heavy weather on my face, his hand a warm front on my shoulder to comfort me. But like you and me and the North Star, he too will lose light and dim and fade. A whispering wind faded out like radio signals fading out at close down. Yet I hear him still, like shipping news to vessels at sea. Hear him on winds from Carnsore Point to the Mizzen, Loop Head to Erris, Rossall to Carlingford Lock. Dead calm, imminent. Dead calm now. Not a breath, not a sound, on all coastal waters and on the Irish Sea. The one that I think about poetry, again, I thank Dominic and all of Limerick for publishing Drawing and Memory. The first poem, if I'm asked to read a poem or comment on it, I usually read the first poem and the last poem, or the last poem and the first poem, and just see where the orientation is to bring one. And I think that all of this starts with the self. And the opening poem is, and who am I when I'm at home? And who am I when I'm away? The answer lies in neither, but both, the settled and the stray. And that's the bit where, you know, God, he's a lovely fellow, Tom Conley. But who knows the shadow side? You know, is he a prick somewhere else? Is he, you know, is he, what is he? What is he like? And some of the interrogation is, you know, about those things. And Drawing and Memory is the name of the collection. And, you know, on memory, we draw on it. You know, we try to map it. And we look at the borderlines, we see, you know, where truth lies. And I like that thing where truth lies about somebody, or you know, who are we really? And what is the best summation of ourselves generally at funerals when people come as tribunes to us. But it is always, as I was saying before, difficult to keep, you know, the mid path and find where the truth is. But on the idea of just this poem here on appetite is one that I have. It's about generally what people do when they lie. Appetite. Do all the muscles employed to create that fake smile of yours know that they have been recruited, frog marched for deception? Do the nerve endings and sensilla on the palm of your hands have any idea that the handshake closed on a treacherous deal? And what of your feet when they walked away, your ears when they heard the lie, and your lips, your wondrous lips? What tongue whets your appetite now? As Seamus was talking about the silence of villages in Palestine, I knew the silences of villages around the border area, and there was very little investment in Cavan and Donegal, and it was again like a no man's land. I could never understand or couldn't get it when you know, so many people were being killed in Northern Ireland, which was literally 2 or 3 miles down the road, and we were all there, you know, like a psychosis. It was all we were all fine in Ireland. And the further south you went, the more people seemed to know about Northern Ireland, or pretended to know. And there was a whole story about it that people were pronouncing on things they didn't know anything about. I was commissioned to write a poem, and I worked with a filmmaker, Yvonne Sullivan, and it was about Belturbet. And if you can remember, there were bombs in Belturbet, and there were 2 young people killed. But she did films, and as Seamus was saying, her films were on not this side, that side. They were through oblique lines. So what she filmed was a bridge that was blown up. So she was filming the absence of a crossing. And you think that that's where poetry and film lies. How do you traverse the river of conflict and difference when the bridge has been gone? How do you create that new space? And how do you negotiate all the scars that have been there? I met with the boatman who was helping to film, and when he's finished, I sat down with him and I chatted with him and I said, you're on the other side of the border, what's it like here? Even though I knew a lot of people there. And he said, well, it's difficult. And I said, why is it difficult? He said, because my aunt and my uncle were killed in the UDR. And he was saying that they were very careful. They didn't travel the same route every evening. And anybody knocked on the door, they had a password. And they knocked on the door one evening, and the password was given. And at 6 o'clock news, the two of them were blown out of it. It was Tommy and Emily Bullock were their names. But the greatest scar and the greatest incision of all was they rang the local police, and then they rang the rendering yard and said, there's a pair of bullocks up the road there, and would you come and bring us? So vicious was it that, I feel, for me, I have to negotiate the space of where I lived first before, and hear from others before I can negotiate or even think of all the things that are happening. And when you sing that song, like how powerful the voices of the past are, and we're thinking, we know so much at the moment. But that's where somebody said, and the book is about memory, it will never be one on the battlefield, but the biggest battle of all is memory after the event. And it ends up in graveyards. Sorry for going on about it a bit, but this is it's a part of a poem called Field Notes. There are 6 films with it, and it is there's a section in it called the Lie of the Land. And Turbot is just sitting on the border, and for those who don't know the square in Northern Ireland, it's called the Diamond. The "You Are Here" mark of location on the Diamond map is under perspex and clouded over now from heavy weather and too many fingers pointing the way. Who are you that stands beside me now? What colour from the palette do you choose? And when the layers are scraped and blowtorched away, what colour then lies beneath? For you and I sing dumb about our true colours. We wear flamboyant clothes, fatigues, camouflage, and the red seeps through. A Williamite war took place beside it, and the place was called the Bloody Pass. Clay holds the Bloody Pass, water washes it down, and the wet red seeps through a menstruation of light, through stained glass windows of high and low churches where people at prayers in different pews hold rosary beads, books of common prayer, to touchstones to the glorious and sorrowful mysteries of a town on a river flowing north across a border to the sea. Your chalice and monstrance hold the same land to the slaughter. Declarations, exhortations, and your finger-pointing blame when it comes to salvation, your Semtex smells the same. The cartographer maps the heavy air, divine the waters that flows, keeps the fire that detonates and blasts, that rings out in volleys. She sees past the empty cartridges and magazines, spent bullet points in the tired tales of this borderland. And the poem ends with there is no solution except peace. And as Michael Longley said, I get down on my knees and do what must be done and kiss the killer's hand, the killer of my son. When the cork crake forgot about being extinct, he opened his voice in the singing field. Song burst from the river, the kingfisher hovered high, levitation was in the air. Crow remembered that black notes were on the scale too. They got the carriage moving again, down the track it shunted over and back on old sleepers. The mapmaker left when grass was long, clocks stole a march in time, waving winter time goodbye. The mayfly was up, fish, arced, trees heavy with leaves stooped, drank in the river run. The horse chestnut had sent chandeliers of uplighting from its boughs, and between it and the sunlight of the morning, the sky took on a reddish hue, and shepherds remained silent. Thanks. Just to conclude the evening, a few poems by the collective, just on that whole experience Seamus was saying, we came together. I lived up in Kiltiernan, and the name of the place was Drumshee, which was the hill of the fairies. And you can imagine there was, you know, up to no good bio as there was something to be done. So the four of us came together, Paul, Darren, James and myself, and a part of it rose out of the fact of having some discipline to write regularly. So we used to meet once a month, and the discipline and regularity was good, but also curiosity as to what would happen if the four voices came together. And Seamus was talking about, you know, sort of collaborations. I do feel like being here in a vibrant place where so many people are functioning, so many people are singing. That's where truth comes out much more than a single voice. Mine's fine, but when it comes together. So if the experience with Quarterman was really good, and the origin and stimulus for the poems could be a saying, it could be an object, it could be anything, but we had a process, and when we met, a decision who started, who go second, who go third, and who concluded, and we did this online. And what we did, we believed that each one would work really hard on their own part of the poem, so we left it unedited. We weren't being lazy. We just said, no, let's bring it unedited. So we used to the four met, and I always think the old tale of the fifth province, when four meet and it's brought into the realm of the fifth province, that's where imagination takes off, and there's something bigger than the four of us. But we gathered, we'd have food and a drink and read the poem, and we finished up that we published a pamphlet called Probe, which is there for you, and like free of charge, collector's item. But we'll start just with there's 3 Quarterman poems, and we'll say just a word before each one, and we'll conclude with that. If anybody wants to ask a question, can. The first one that we're going to read is on page 4 there. It's Rain. And he came from listening to this. And he has a poem that he used to say, up and the rain said, listen now again.
No radio effects.
And so to exhibit 1, item, a furrowed cactus cylinder, spines removed, then hammered back in, a seeded system of latent lives that tick, tick, and trickle through the phone. Relevant hornbossil sax categories: 112.1, a shaken idiophone; 112.11, perforated and mounted together to strike against each other; 112.3, the split idiophone, in which arms touching each other are forced apart to jangle; 121.2, morsing, the lamella dependent on the player's mouth for resonance.
We heard one of us whisper as we crouched tight together behind a stack of 12 bursting full hundredweight bags. Be quiet, he said, they'll hear us. Idiot, someone answered. I took out my penknife, waited the moment, then jabbed the blade through the Hessian weave and made a 6-inch cut. We listened to the grain falls pouring like soft gravel from a lifting truck, and the creamery men never heard. We sneaked back out, heading for the river below, tongues bursting with pride and nonsense calls.
Satisfied, we plashed the surface, turned up ground to heavy hail. And so, exhibit 2, the turntable after the performance, whispers. A stylus stuck on vinyl awaits the pickup arm to lift, then guide it back to rest. No touching permitted after passion, complete cessation of caresses, rumbled clouds block out blue sky, something splashes glass.
Something splashes the mirror glass meniscus of the lake of the river pool. Plip, plop, plip and plop at first, plucking watery crowns, then releasing them back from where they came. Plip, plop, plop and plip and plop again. To show the waters break, birthing clouds inundate, send volleys to pepper spray and strafe. Move quiet waters from the resting place over the precipice of the waterfall to the river run of petrel and stone turn, sandblast of a river gathering pace. And the adjacent wood, not to be outdone, picks up the rush of it all, rainfall, perforate trickle through leaf and branch, peppercorn, sea salt, canister spilling sound, precipitation on the woodstick wooded forest floor. We stumble on a clearing. The world turns and tilts to the salutation of hail, the relief of rain. And so to Exhibit 3, 4 rainmakers on a narrow bridge, hazel sticks in hand, divining water in a rainy season.
You start to introduce it?
Yes. And as we said before, an object might do it, and then a saying might say it. There was one, I don't know if it was a name, but certainly down in Calgary, what they used to say was, put down that knife or someone's going to lose an eye. Like, I have never come across anybody who lost an eye, except that maybe in places in Cork, the whole village were like, but it never seemed to happen, but it was always a warning, you know, put down that or do something, somebody's going to lose an eye. Someone's going to lose an eye, page 16. On the subject of the correlation between pointed domestic objects given to flight and the loss of vision, I have to confess I'm no expert. But my mother, on the other hand, along with many other women, profess great knowledge on this matter and many similar matters pertaining to imminent foreboding. Admonitions punctuated by put-downs. Put down that stick, put down them scissors, put down that knife, or someone will lose an eye. Soothsayers all, though I cannot recall any of their soothsayings coming to pass.
Someone's going to lose an eye. Someone's going to lose an eye. Someone's going to lose an eye before they pay attention. Then my tongue came ambling round to honour admonition, saddled on an ass of self-projection, casting spells as well as any mother. Mysteries of witch in flight searching our horizons for an eye, for an ear, for a mouth, for a tongue. What matter joker, hangman, witch or cabbage? Silent words that float, autumnal falls that carpet in prophetic weaves, the joys of serendipity with someone's going to lose an eye. Someone's going to lose an eye. Someone's going to lose an eye before they'll pay attention.
And then the Inquisition, the racking retribution of rhetorical inquiry. What did I tell you? How many times have I told you? Do you know what it is? And the exposition. You're looking for a good slap. That's what you get for showing off. The intricacies of physiology employed. On picking. If you don't stop, you'll pull your eye strings out. On pockets. You'll be left round-shouldered. On handling. You'll go blind. Which flight of time released the knock? An eye for an eye. The fear of the maimed, the half-manned, halt and lame, Harold's kingdom, a boat passing through his eye and flying on the long parabola to Mother Earth.
She sees it coming and a long way off, hurls her warning cry, someone's going to lose an eye. Call her Cassandra at your peril, she'll ask you who or what, and who's your Homer anyhow. Another blind man singing for his cup, mopping up the aftermath of slaughter into form and verse and order. He should have brushed his beard and washed behind each ear, and worn maternal armour in the fray, a set of bronze-aged goggles on his brow. Fact is, good counsel taken an early stage is vital for survival. I must conclude now, most women work with mysteries, leaving battle poems to men. They signal all our histories, which ought be sign enough to make you pause for thought, boy. Because someone's going to lose. Someone's going to lose. Someone's going to lose.
The third one is called The Day We Travelled North. And before we read it, in March of this year, at the end of February this year, there was a killing in Northern Ireland came to the surface again because the court case is still carrying on. It was the shooting dead in his car of a man called Sean Brown, who was the chairman of the GAA in Bellaghy. And we didn't know this before we paid a visit to Bellaghy. It was on the anniversary of Seamus Heaney's death and funeral. We decided to go up to the grave, and then we go to a pub and have a drink or something, and it turned into a really extraordinary day. Good enough, yeah. Okay. It happens. Something will surprise the day. Today, sipping beer and coffee in the Entra bar across from the post office, conversation slips into a dark, shadowed well. We're talking pictures on the wall, Elvis, local heroes, winning teams. He was an innocent man, she said, touching the framed newspaper cutting. A good man, not political, shot, the car burned. We thought the troubles were in Belfast and Derry. After Sean was mobbed up, this place turned silent, silent. We fall with her into aquifers of memory. Hear the story through, sit giving time its while to pass. Then she brightens up. Do you want to see the school? It's on your way, and the forge too.
Sallies were cut from a ditch and used to beat division into us. The numerator of who's who and the denominator of belief that was common, but rent us apart on the line, for thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory. Gone and missing hang in these hills, disappear like letters of the central bar. Memory is forged in dark places. Horseshoes are worn the wrong way around, and following the trail of hoofprints, the closer you think, the further you are away. Magpie is master, keeps the count. A fighting cock is perched on a loft when Barney opens the door into the dark.
Time wraps the artefacts of working life in minute detail here. Particulars of spent days. An armoury of tongs and hammers stacked in rows. Imagination rattles and stirred up wanders off to flip the switch that takes out shadow. Something wakes up and the dead cock crows. And what do you know, poet man or schoolboy, every atom and no man yet at all? What do you know, having travelled north to almost past the blacksmith's blackened door? Whose night watch this, waymaker? What sentry begs the question after years of hush? Who's there? Stay and answer. Answer the question, ghost.
Away with you. Watch the night spot on the wall. Witness the instruments of a dying trade. See the fingerprints in the dust. See the fingers themselves. Heft the instruments of the old work. Grip, jaws, fire, arms, dogs, pliers of this and the other. You know yourself. And the horned altar at the dark core to beat it out on, and the means there to blow it. And above it all, the cock of the north, mascot of the Nile of the one-time killing glory, demigod of gobbets of blood, wattled on rails, and wrapped mothers in the backs of cars, who pass many doors and many darks behind them. Out there, in the sunken skin parishes as light leaks from the nod-hushed corners, the ring of the hammerfall fades as our black car heads south in the wake of previous night cars, going hammer and tongs, trailing lead, wire, spent shells,
the agonies of memory making, left living in their spoor.
I should have added on the few words I said at the beginning, that when we left the bar to head off, we turned around a corner and drove up where the forge was, which is the forge that was the door into the dark in Heaney's great poem. And we told Paul, get out of the car there, you're nearest to it, go across and see is it open, or what does it say as the other side. And he went across, and he was there for ages, and we got impatient, and we all got out and we went across. And we were there for a few minutes, and there was a call from behind us. A man had come out of the house that we had parked beside, and he called us, and we went over. He was the blacksmith the poem was about. And I think we wanted to see it, gave us the key to go in, and the items inside as described there in the poem and indicated. And then said, come in for a cup of tea when you're finished. And we went in for the cup of tea, and it was just wonderful. He sat down and was talking for a while, and he jumped up and he walked across the room and he opened a drawer and a dresser of shells or whatever, pulled out the drawer, and he took out a sheet of paper, an A4 sheet of paper, with Seamus Heaney's handwriting of a door into the dark. For him.
Wow.
To him. I sort of said, if I had that, and that was the blacksmith, I'd have it up on the wall. There he had it in the drawer, you know. Just gorgeous. But he welcomed us in, like, you know, he didn't have a problem with people coming to look at the forge. It was a beautiful thing.
And what was interesting about that journey is that we went with a Quarterman poem to the post office to post it in Balahi, and we had the next person to send it to. So the whole idea of the poem was, you know, a response poem or a relay poem, but it depended entirely who was receiving it.
Yeah.
So I can say to you that Iggy McGovern received it, and he had a line in it. His line was, for Harvard, read Haggard. But he sent it on to somebody else. And what was interesting was, what you do really well, and promoting people and bringing other voices in. The next person who received the poem, there was clear instruction, send it back if you're not going to send it out. He never sent it back. So you see, the spirit is great here for poetry, but sometimes others, you know what I mean, they curate their own gods, you know.
It's like the ball toss.
To cover them up a chain letter, I'd say, anyway. Far more spiritual than
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You got everybody?
Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
Absolutely. It's the doing of it.